right, welcome to episode 155 of the Auto Detailing Podcast. I'm Jimbo, your host, and today we brought back on Kevin to more so brighten up his day, because is it still snowing there, Kevin?
It's actually pretty nice today. I can still see a little snow, but yeah,
All
it's
right.
still just hanging out with you brightens my day anyway, you know.
Well, come on.
Yeah.
Now we're getting this bromance again like last time. Anyway, so Kevin, as we were just talking about before we started recording, well, actually we recorded, but I'll edit that part out. Instead of this being me interviewing you, it's going to be more of a us just going back and forth talking about debt, financing, and then hustling. So how much hustle is too much? When do you trying to find that balance between work life and home life, and what that maybe looks like, and what are some concerns of overworking, I
Sure.
guess. So I think we're going to, just thinking about it right now, going from business debt to overworking yourself is quite the span, but I think it's a good talk. But before we get into that, if no one's heard you before or haven't heard you on the podcast, tell us who you are, just real quick, and what you do.
Sure. I'm, like you said, Kevin Davis, and I, among other things, I'm the guy that came up with that whole Detailer's Helper thing. Detailer's Helper is one of my brands.
You're the guy.
I'm the guy, and so that's going well. Things are progressing there. We're trying to sort of change a little bit of the industry from the inside out with that. And let's see, I run 5 or 6 other businesses along with that, but that's sort of within the detailing realm. That's more or less what we focus on.
So you have vast experience within business, seeing debt, seeing what debt can do, both good and bad, and what overworking can do to the body.
Sure. Yeah, I've been. I was thinking about it today. If we're on video right now, or I'm recording video, but for those of your listeners who've never seen a picture of me, you can just imagine like the really old crotchety guy at Walmart, the Walmart greeter, only like with a walker. That's how old I am. So
I can see it.
No, we've been in business for a long time. I started my first, went out on my own back in '98. So I've been around for a long time, and this is pretty timely. The reason I wanted to talk about the whole business debt thing is because I've actually, up until about a month and a half ago, had never actually taken any business debt. And looking back over the last 17, 18 years of my business, I think probably that actually limited my growth with business. And I probably should have made a decision to take on some debt at some point in the past. But I was in web development, which is a pretty low overhead business. Basically, you buy a computer, you get your website thing going, and you're good. When it comes to detailers, I mean, you're looking at $5 to $10,000 probably for most guys as startup costs. And, you see a lot of guys just doing stuff out of the trunk and all that, which is okay, but that may not be the right decision.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Last week on the show we had Jeff Agwell, a 17-year-old detailer, and he started with $1,500. And there's a lot of guys that do that. Obviously, Jeff was in a different, him being so young when he started. I think he was 15 when he started.
Wow.
So it's a bit different than if you are a little bit older in your years. And you're wanting to, launch with a bigger operation. But I'm with you. I come from, I took the Dave Ramsey financial piece course. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Kevin.
My wife used to teach that course at church. So yeah.
Yeah. So we took that, and I was so against debt. You know what I mean? And just any kind of debt. It doesn't matter. And as of recently, and me and my wife are completely out of debt. But as of recently, I started to kind of rethink that a little bit. And I don't know if it's right or wrong, and maybe we'll get into it. But I think that taking on debt for a business, if you do it the right way, and I don't know if there is a right way, quote unquote.
I think there is, but
so yeah, let's talk about that, because if you do it, how about if you do it smart? I was going to say smartly, but
right.
that wasn't very smart.
Smartly's okay.
That wasn't very smartly of me. But if you do it the right way or the smart way, you can actually really use it to benefit you. And I feel like I'm going on a rant, so go ahead.
No, I think you're right. I mean, we come from the same place. I own all my vehicles. We pay cash for vehicles. Any toys that we buy, we pay cash. The only debt that I've had for probably the last 20 years has been our home mortgage. So I want people to think, oh, well, just rack up the credit cards and
Right.
then take on additional business debt. If you're talking about taking on any additional debt, you want to make sure that it makes sense and do it smartly, like you said, but make sure it makes sense in the grand scheme of your financial picture. When I started thinking about, all right, do I want to do this? And for us with Detailer's Helper, I need inventory. I need professional videos. I need professional marketing. And I mean, you're talking about 15 to 50 grand, depending on what you want to spend. So, if I want to say, well, I want to save up for that, well, I'll be out of business before I save up for that. And the same thing could happen with detailers too. I mean, if you need, let's say you need $5,000 for a mobile trailer, extractors, steamers, basic equipment, and that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, it'd be awesome if you can get that and you can save for that and make sure that happens. But for some people, that may not work. For them.
Or take too long, like you said. It's just we're like me. I started with $5,000. I took a loan out from my dad, and that got me my initial investment. But I made that. I think the first month I was in business, I made $5,200 or grossed $5,200. So, like you're saying, you need inventory. You're not going to make any money for Detailer's Helper if you can't sell any belts.
Right. And same thing for detailers. If you don't have money to buy, I mean, polish and stuff, that stuff's expensive. I mean, you can easily drop $500 on an order for basic equipment. I mean, not even equipment, but basic supplies for cleaners and polishes and pads and all that stuff. So, but again, two jobs later and you've already made all that money back. So I started thinking about debt in a different way, and I was talking to Yvon LaCroix about this a little bit, and he reminded me, he said, you got to make sure that people understand not to think about business debt as debt. It's sort of a, with physical products, we'd call it cost of goods sold.
Right.
Any financing that any interest or whatever, that just becomes part of that cost of goods sold equation. Or it just becomes a business expense. Like, it's just part of the equation for doing business. And so that's, you need to think about business debt in that way instead of, this great big thing that's going to suck me down into the pit of despair or whatever. Because it's easy to sort of think about that because debt is bad. I mean, people in our country manage debt so poorly that really we should be more afraid of it than not. But when you're talking about business debt, it's a little bit of a different equation.
Well, you almost have to look at it as an investment instead of an expense. So this is how I explain it to my wife. I got the Sprinter van, and she's like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, but you have to look at that as that is a money-making machine. It's expensive. Literally. But it is my everything, from how it looks to what's inside to what I can do with it. That thing, it just makes money. I go, if we went out and bought you a Sprinter van, it just sits there for you to, play taxi with the kids, which is fine. She obviously isn't driving a Pinto, but I can justify, at least in my own brain, the Sprinter for a business endeavor. And I think that's kind of what you're trying to allude to, is that look at business debt as more of an investment than than accruing something bad.
Right.
You're using someone else's money so that you can make money and then pay that person who loaned you the money, pay that money back.
Right. And I would encourage, like we said before, I mean, it really is you need to look at your personal finances and make sure your personal finances are in order. Every vehicle that I have at my house right now, the lowest mileage vehicle has 125,000 miles on it. We have 0 car payments. I'm not driving a brand new Escalade or whatever. I've got a Denali that's got 190,000 miles on it. So I mean,
Right.
my credit score, when we started looking at that, my credit score is over 800. So I have I have really good credit. We have no debt, all that.
While we're here, do you just want to give out your social real quick?
Sure, 443. No. So
Just kidding.
yeah, steal my identity like that guy from LifeLock. Who
Yeah,
actually
perfect.
got his identity stolen, which I think is great irony.
Wow.
Anyway, but
Sorry
no,
for
I mean,
the-
I think that, so if if you've got 15 credit cards that are maxed out and you have 4 car payments or even 2 car payments or whatever, and you're already up to your eyeballs in debt, then you need to seriously evaluate what's going on. Like in that case, if you've got 2 car payments, sell one of those cars, buy a cheaper car and use that money to fund your business. I'm not encouraging people to just go into debt like crazy just to fund their business.
But that brings up, excuse me, a good point is that if someone is looking to take on debt for their business, should it be a personal debt? Should they be using their personal credit cards for business debt? Should they establish like an LLC or a corporation and have the business take on the debt, or how should they structure that?
Yeah, there's actually, in my opinion, there's 4 different ways to get money. There's to do what you did with your dad, which is friends and family, and I would typically only encourage that, if the relationship is already solid and can handle it. Let's say you couldn't pay your $5,000 back. If your dad was not okay with you not paying that back, then I would probably have cautioned you against that. So don't ever don't ever take a loan out that you think would destroy a relationship, and don't ever loan money that you actually have to get back. That's sort of
let me cut in real quick and finish that story, because you're exactly right. Because I was under the impression of that. I was I was 19. Yeah, I was just had turned 19 when I started my detail business and took on that money. And at the time, our relationship was strong, but I was under the impression that that was a gift to get my business off the ground. So we didn't, obviously, father-son thing. We didn't write anything up. The agreement wasn't really even solid. It was just, we went out to look at a trailer one day, and it was $5,000, and Dad pulled out the cash. Kinda.
Yeah.
The agreement was loose, and then I honestly didn't think much of it until a year and a half later. Serious?
Yeah, really.
So it can go, and we had to work through it, and it was fine. But like you said, I would encourage you, or the people listening, if you're going to go to friends and family, have that agreement in stone, written out way before you accept the money.
Yeah, and that's what's funny, because every family is different. My dad and I have probably a less close relationship and more of a no BS type relationship. And so, when I started thinking about asking him for money, I actually gave him terms and said, all right, well, it's this interest rate. I'll pay it back in this amount of time. Are you interested in, are you looking for any investments? And at the time, he didn't have the extra cash. It was, he's in oil and gas mainly, and so the gas prices kill him. So he didn't have it. But in that case, for sure, get it in writing. I don't care if it's family or not. If it's, at least have something down so that everybody understands what's going on.
Yes, even if it's on a napkin, done over dinner, just have something.
Just for the sake, not even for financial, just for the sake of the relationship. That makes sense. So
absolutely.
The second thing, and if you're 19, 18 and don't own your own home or whatever, this really isn't an option. But if you're my age and you have a house, right, that you own and have some if you have some home equity, then that's a really good way you can leverage that home equity in order to get some money.
Love that.
And luckily we've sort of recovered from the 2008 thing. Prices are going back up. So there's a couple different ways to use home equity. Either just a straight home equity loan, which your bank will loan against your home equity. That's one way to do it. A HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit. And so it's still the same thing, but instead of being a lump sum, they actually loan. You basically have a checking account that's tied to this loan. So if you need $5,000, you write $5,000 checks, and that gets deposited, and so that becomes the loan. There's another option, which is if you have enough home equity, you can actually do like a cash out refinance, and you can say, okay, well, my home is worth $200,000. I only owe $100,000 on it, so I'll refinance it back up to that 80%, which would be 180, $180,000 or whatever. Then that allows you to get that $80,000 difference back out as cash.
On those first two options you talked about, as far as the home's concerned, are you having to refinance to pull that extra money out?
Most of the time with a HELOC, from what I understand, the HELOC's a little bit more simple, and they usually don't require a closing or anything like that. Every bank's different. Every mortgage broker is going to be a little bit different. If you're doing a home equity loan, typically that would, at the minimum, have some sort of closing and an appraisal. So the appraisal is going to cost you $500 or $600 just to get that done, plus the closing costs and all that stuff. It's typically cheaper than a cash out refinance, the third option.
Okay.
But yeah, there'll be some paperwork there, which is just basically becomes a cost of the money at that point.
Right. Okay.
So, then you got traditional small business loans, which used to be way easier to get. I actually tried to go this route, and even with tons of collateral, tons of home equity, awesome credit, my local bank at least would not even loan me the money that I needed. So
how come?
Well, basically, I was trying to use some equity in a second home that I have. We have that vacation rental in Orlando, and they didn't want to loan out of state because we're in Montana. That home is in Florida, so that was a big sticking point. And I was looking at getting $100,000. That home is worth $250,000, and they still wouldn't use it as collateral because it was out of state. I probably could have, and I didn't want to use my main home as collateral. And so I ended up going another route, what we'll talk about in a minute. But there's, you can do the SBA, the Small Business Administration. There's a whole process there. So small business loan's not a bad thing. You just need to go talk to your local banker. My situation's a little bit different, depending on what your personal situation is. You just have to talk to them and see what the options are. But getting a traditional business loan, and I mean, if you're looking at, there's a big difference between a $5,000 small business loan and a $100,000 business loan.
Right.
So the different things. But what's interesting is when you start looking at small business loans, they want you to be $250,000, $300,000 a year net revenue before they'll even talk to you. So like, just with money is so dumb sometimes. Any loan that you want to get, you basically have to prove that you don't need the money before they'll give you the money. And so,
which is the big argument against that.
Right, yeah. And so, but I mean, the money's out there. You can find a way to get it. The other one is a little bit more risky. There's this whole thing where you can actually get a few, add a couple of credit cards, do a liquidation on those credit cards, which is basically like there's a bunch of these zero interest balance transfers that give you checks, and you can actually use those to write those checks to yourself and get 18 months of interest-free financing on that. And let me just say that I'm not recommending that for most people, but if you have a really good handle on what you're doing, if you have a really good handle on finances and you're really good with money, it's not a bad way to get some extra cash. That's not the same as doing a cash advance on your credit card. This is a whole different scenario. This is basically like having a new credit card and doing a balance transfer on it, because they'll charge you 24% if you start doing a cash advance, and the fees are typically like 24% interest plus 3% of the whatever the cash advance is. So you're like, might as well go talk to a loan shark at that point. So
one thing, another way that I've never figured out how you could actually do it, but it's becoming really popular, and that's crowdsourcing.
Yeah.
And I almost wondered, I don't know if it would work, but it probably could somehow. But if you pre-sold detail services to get money to start your detailing business. I don't know if anyone's ever done it. Maybe I'll look it up real quick. But
there was a guy today that had I need to buy polishers GoFundMe campaign that I saw on Facebook.
So people are doing it.
But yeah, I think that as far as like pre-selling, it'd have to be such a targeted market. In your area, you're in Southern California, so you have a pretty big market to choose from.
Right.
It may work. I mean, that's definitely crowdfunding it's supposed to quadruple this year to somewhere around $60 billion or something. I mean, it's crazy. So
It's I guess a good idea if you could. I don't know. You would have to be really creative with it. And
yeah,
it's almost like just raising money from friends and family, I would think.
yeah. I think that's probably the easiest. I mean, I think the second easiest thing is to do a full-on audit of your personal finances.
Okay.
I would bet if you need 5 to 10 grand, I would bet that most people could probably find at least part of that, just in what they're spending, what they're overspending, what too many cars, too many toys, that kind of thing. So
Right.
that sort of be even though we are talking about taking on debt, that would be the first choice for me, which you're going to need anyway if you go out trying to get any real loans. You're going to need to have your financial house in order.
Yeah, and I think the majority, and I don't know if I should even say this, but the majority of people are going to be looking right around that $5,000 to $10,000 amount to kind of break in. I know that there's some other guys that are getting really nice rigs, and they probably have 30 or 40 grand tied up there, or maybe they're going straight to a fixed location, and you need maybe up to 100. But I don't know. Would you agree that the majority of people are going to be in that?
I think that would probably be a good start. I mean, if I was a brand new detailer just trying to break into the industry, I'm not going to sign up for a $3,000 a month loan, another $1,000 a month.
That's a good point.
Sprinter payment, whatever. I'm not. I don't think that's.
Hey,
good. I don't think.
Leave it alone.
That's
Not that much.
That's not good. Well, I mean, it's easy to get to $1,000 car payment's not hard to get to these days when you're talking about these vans and equipment and all that stuff. And
Right.
there is one other option that I didn't talk about is some of these companies that will sell outfitted, fully outfitted rigs and all that. They'll actually finance that as well. So that's sort of a different form of business.
That's another option too. I tend to shy away from like setup done for you rigs because I just feel like there's so much you're paying them for that service to set it up for you. But that's a good point that if they're going to finance it for you, it may be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have, that's just another option.
Yeah.
And that becomes, you're going to pay an extra $500 for that same equipment.
Right.
As
Which
a
is
cost
fine.
of that, sort of to pay for the convenience or for the availability of getting it financed too. But, yeah.
So would you suggest people take on debt to start up their business?
I think what sort of philosophically what I like to convey is don't be afraid of doing it if you feel like you need to do it. I think that if you can come up with 3 to 5 grand to get your polishers and do some basic marketing and that kind of stuff, like we've talked about before in other segments, you can DIY your website, you can do all that stuff and get started and start building a client base, then set aside a specific amount each month to then to avoid taking on debt. I mean, obviously for me it's better to avoid it if you can help it, but what I'm trying to convey is don't be afraid of it if you need it.
Right. Well, it's kind of to use you as an example, or to use the startup guy who's just trying to break into the industry compared to you. I would tell the guy just starting out, make sure you really want to do this first.
Yeah.
and that's where I like what you were talking about was buy the most minimal amount of equipment that you can. Don't worry about what everyone is showing off on Facebook. Start with the most minimal amount of product that you could start with, and you could probably do that under $500. I mean, you're not going to have a Roops, and you're not going to have a Flex, and you're not going to have all this. But for under $500, you could start detailing some cars pretty dang good with a little bit of creativity. Start building your clientele base. Start figuring out how to run a business, which I think we talked about before. It's not just polishing cars. You actually do have to run a business here. And find out if you like it, start building a client base, and then if you need the debt, then take on the debt. And I think that's kind of where you're at. It seems like with your business, you are out of the prototyping stage. You actually have clients. You have people that have purchased your belt. You have future opportunities that it seems like you need to have some capital to reach those future opportunities. Correct me if I'm totally wrong. I'm just guessing. So you need that. You need to take on that debt to help propel you to get to those bigger opportunities.
Right. It takes me from it takes me from selling, this many belts a day or week to 10 times that is what it gives me an opportunity to do. And the same thing with detailers. If you can do 6 cars a week, and you can't afford to pay an employee right now or whatever, you need a bigger truck, you need more equipment, you need more polishers or whatever, and that allows you to do 18 cars a week with more employees, better equipment, that kind of stuff, then that would make sense to do that. So it's a stepping step. It's a tool to help you grow into that next level. Basically, I mean, same thing for me. What you're talking about. I mean, I think I started. I've got a Mighty steamer. I didn't end up spending $1,500 for the best steamer out there. I've got a Mighty light extractor that was $700, not $2,500 like the next level of extractor, and they all work great. I mean, I've done tons and tons of cars with those things. Had to replace a couple of parts here and there, but there's no reason to go buy all, especially now with, you got the new Meguiar's, that MT300, that's a $200 polisher, which is a little bit above the, the Porter cable and those kind of things. There's tons of stuff out there in all those different levels to help you.
Right. Yeah. That MT300, nice machine. I like it. Did you get one?
Yeah, I got one. So it's sitting here. I'm actually going to take it back down there to Southern California, and we're going to polish on this Cobra with it. So
nice.
Yeah. So
okay, I like that. So yeah, if you take on debt, yes and no.
Well, it just what I'm saying is don't be afraid of it, but don't use it as a way just to keep up with all the other guys on Facebook either.
Right.
I mean, just
Good point.
If you've just decided, hey, I have to have a Roops, I have to have this $5,000 piece of equipment, and you decide that that's what you want to do, that's not a great reason to take on debt. But it like you were saying, you have to know what you're doing in terms of running the business, and that's part of that decision making process.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. I think we covered that pretty well. And I love that last point that you said, is that, you don't need the higher end equipment will make your job easier.
Right.
A good steamer will make your job easier. But if you're just breaking into the industry, you don't need it right away. The first car I got paid to detail, I did with a Meguiar's paste wax, and I didn't even clay it. And I had a cleaner and some car wash soap and some like Meguiar's tire shine. That's Armor All. It was Armor All. Oh my gosh.
Nice.
I used Armor All. Armor All, because they had the highest sheen tire shine that I knew about.
Yeah.
And that's all I knew. But hey, I got paid to do it, and the customer was stoked. So it's like you can start there. So
yeah, I mean, and honestly, I still use that kind of. I mean, I'm using Simple Green as my APC, and even in my extractors and all that. I'm not paying $25 for 16 ounces of some of these APCs that are out there, because I don't think I need to.
Well, but that's the beauty of having to be creative in the beginning, is you learn yourself where you can not even cut the corners, but where you can. Sorry, am I putting my hand in the way of
the?
Yeah. You're learning where you need to spend your money. So you're learning if you do need to spend $40 a gallon on a all-purpose cleaner, or if you can get the $10 a gallon thing down at AutoZone. But that's nice to know. Sometimes I go down to AutoZone or O'Reilly's and just check out the detailing stuff that they have on the shelves, because sometimes I'm in a pinch.
Right.
And sometimes I need to know what they have, just in case I'm in a pinch and can't make it anywhere else. You know what I mean? So I think that's...
Well, I'll nerd out here a little bit. There's this thing called, in the pharmaceutical industry, there's this thing called minimum effective dose, right? So that's whatever the minimum amount of medicine you need to achieve whatever the drug is supposed to do. And I sort of use that same philosophy when it comes to detailing supplies and tools in general. It's like, if I can pay $150 for this tool and it will get me 95% of the way there most of the time, then that makes sense. If it gets me 20% of the way there, though, no, let's let's look at other options, or if it breaks every time I take it out or whatever. But I mean, that's sort of, and like you're saying, starting out and being a little hungry before allows you to figure out what you can use to get to that point.
Right. So speaking about being hungry, it is almost a badge of honor. I wouldn't say just in the detailing industry, but with all startups. And if you listen to any startup story, it talks about, sleeping underneath the desk at the office in a sleeping bag. So overworking and pushing your body to the limits is something that is really prevalent and sometimes needed within startups. But specifically with detailing, it seems like it's almost a badge of honor to do nothing but have a polisher in your hands all day long, 8 days a week. And it's actually something interesting that I don't know if you were there when we were talking about it at the Benedict car show with Rennie Doyle and a couple other. We're in a circle, and we were talking about this. Like,
I was probably parking cars at that time.
You were probably sleeping. Sleeping in a car that you were supposed to be parking. No, but talked about having a life outside of detailing, and I get it. It's hard to not be working all the time, and as you know, having a family and having these extracurricular activities that I have to do when I get home from work, which is why I don't work too late in the afternoon because I got to go home. But it almost seems like a badge of honor to put in 100-hour weeks. Can you kind of talk to that? And
I mean, it's I don't know if it is in the startup. There's this whole hashtag hustle thing that I keep seeing, and it drives me absolutely crazy because it's
Hustle Nation.
What's that?
Hustle Nation.
That's right. Make that money, right? That's make that money. That's you have to use that.
DAT.
DAT. You have to use that phrase. But there's
two white guys telling you how
and
to
I think that right. I think that for younger guys especially, there's sort of this just work hard, 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, and that's what brings success. And I think the whole problem with that is that how you define success and what it is that's making your life successful. And
that's a good point. And
realizing that you don't know really how long you have. I mean, there's this, I don't know, you remember who Billy Ray Cyrus is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm old, but Billy Ray Cyrus had this line in a song that said, you never see on a tombstone, I wish I'd spend more time at work. Right. And so from the great immortal words of Mr. Cyrus, but it's true. I mean, I would just encourage all these younger guys to really start looking at what you're doing. And I mean, I understand if you're just starting a business and you need to spend 50, 60 hours a week doing your business so that you can continue to grow it, you can get the client base built up, you can do enough cars to pay your bills and all that. I would go back actually and take a look at my pricing strategy to see why I'm working 60 hours a week in order to make ends meet. If I'm working $8 an hour or whatever, that would be something to go back and look at. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure I understand. A lot of these guys use work as an excuse. I don't know whether it's a philosophy of sort of avoidance, or if it's so I can keep up with other people on Facebook, other people in the detailing groups or whatever. But like you're saying, it's sort of a badge of honor. I'm rambling a little bit, but
no, I was too. And I was just thinking, I get it. I get it on one hand, and then I don't get it. And it may be different now for me because I have a family. But even when I remember back when I first started detailing cars, I was so excited that not only I could do something that I really, really love to do, whatever, clean cars. I'm not sold that I love cleaning up other people's messes, but I like cleaning cars. And I was so excited that I got to do that. But at the same time, I was so excited that I could make my own schedule. And then if I wanted to be off at 1:00, I was off at 1:00. And so that was something that always came to me kind of, hey, I own my own business so that I could take off a Tuesday if I want. Right. I own my own business so that I can, if I don't want to work, if I don't want to take on another car today, I don't have to. And so maybe that was kind of lazy on my part and being 19, because now I struggle with, especially doing the podcast and doing all this online stuff that I'm trying to do. As you well know, you can get sucked into it all the time, because detailing for a mobile detailer like me, I'm limited by, I can only work while the sun's up pretty much.
Right.
I guess, so, but if you're doing online stuff, you can work literally all the time. Right. So now I'm struggling because I'm catching myself going home from work and then working on my phone or working on my computer. And I got 2 little kids at home, that my wife watches all day, and she's ready for a break by the time I get home. And then I'm like, hold on, I got to do a little bit more work. And she's like, hello, you've been gone all day. So I get where the guys are coming from that are just working all the time. But, Larry Cosilla had a podcast a while back about, I think he blew out his knee.
Yep.
And he had the doctor on about blah, 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 whatever. But the main point was he was talking about how he was lacking taking care of his own body.
Yeah.
And I think I'm starting to ramble now too, so thanks for passing that torch. But if I think we need to have the mindset of longevity versus the here and now. Like, I want to be here on earth long after my detailing days are over.
Right.
And I want to be able to enjoy those years with my kids and their kids and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be, because we are in an industry that is so taxing on our body that if we're not careful, we're toast.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and on the other side of that, you never know how long you have. There's this quote that I like to use is, don't get so busy, don't get so caught up building your business that you forget to build a life. And that, there's your takeaway tag for the day. But
say it again.
Don't get so caught up building a business that you forget to build a life. To me, if you're working 80 to 100 hours a week in your business, you're an employee. You're not an entrepreneur. You're not a business owner. You're a slave. I mean, I'd rather go find a higher paying job somewhere else, or find a lower paying job that I can work 40 hours a week. From a personal standpoint, I started early in the corporate world. I worked for software companies. My degree is actually in exercise physiology. So I ran health clubs, and then I went to work for this software company that was in the fitness industry. And so I was sort of this up and coming young buck, went through the ranks. This was back in the .com boom and all that, and had a bit of a wife-driven epiphany is the way I'll put it. She basically called me one day and she said, I'm going to pack all my stuff, so if you would like to stay married, I would suggest that you come home and we have a discussion. So, but
you're right there.
Yeah, so I did. And it was interesting because I had to end up re-engineering my whole philosophy about work and about money and about what success means. I had a young daughter at home. She was only 6 months old, and I had missed the first 6 months of her life because I was on the road. I did corporate training, and so I would leave either on Sunday night or Monday morning and come home Friday night or Saturday morning. So I was literally only home at the house for 30 hours a week maybe total, including sleep.
Gosh.
And so as you can imagine, that's not real family friendly. But I think that even, that's with travel. But I think there are guys that are doing that right now in their detailing business. And for whatever reason, I would just encourage everyone to sort of think through and really do a self-examination and figure out, what does my daily life look like with my family? Am I on my phone the whole time when I'm home and I got my kids crawling on my legs or whatever? That's not quality time.
Right.
And as guys, especially, we have a hard time. If you've got little kids, it's hard to connect sometimes.
Yep.
But that's super important time. I have 2 daughters that are 16 and 15 now, and I know for a fact that me being home and me being engaged with them made a huge difference in the way that they are turning out.
So what are some, maybe since you've been there, though it was a different industry, it's still the same thing, being gone so much. What are some practical tips that you can give to guys that maybe are just on that hamster wheel of just work, since you were at that same spot, what are some, besides your wife telling you that she was going to leave, what are some practical tips that you can give to a guy that's going through that right now, but doesn't want to be going through that? He only wants to be working 40 hours a week or even less. What are some things maybe that you did during your time when you were on that hamster wheel of just working all the time that you could give to that guy?
Well, are we assuming that we're self-employed at this point, or either or? I mean, the situation is going to be a little bit different if you work for somebody.
So, yeah,
I think most of our listeners are what? Self-employed, right?
Well, some of them are, but a lot of them are also trying to make that jump from they have their full-time job, maybe they're detailing, nights and weekends, and so they're in that awkward in-between stage of like transition.
Yep.
And then there's also full-time detailers as well.
So if you're in a transition stage, obviously that's going to look a little bit different.
We only have 5 listeners too, so you better nail it.
All right, so we gotta get this right. So if you're in that transition stage, I mean, obviously if you're working a full-time job and then you're doing nights and weekends on detailing, I think that the first thing would be and all this sort of is self-reflection, and every single
absolutely.
one of these will need to do some self-inventory kind of thing.
Right.
But, if I would first decide what your end goal was and actually have a plan. So if you say, okay, I need X number of clients or X number of dollars per week, per month, in order to go out, to feel comfortable going out on my own. Like whenever I went on my own with my first company, I said, I need to have a client base that will pay for 40% of my monthly income before I feel confident to make that leap. Otherwise you'll never do it. So come out with that plan, figure out what that number looks like. And if that number is, I need to do 6 details a day, 7 days a week, then you
scale the lifestyle.
you probably want to rethink that plan. You know what I mean? And so, because I think it's easy just to put your head down and sort of barrel through life. And I think that's what a lot of people do. And so they sort of, under this guise of, I'm working my way towards something which may or may not ever happen, because you really don't have any plan beyond what's in the calendar right now. Right. And so, for those guys, definitely take a look at the numbers, come up with a definitive plan, come up with a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month. I like milestones, which milestones are like, if I'm not here at 3 months, then I need to rethink this. If I'm not here at 6 months, I need to rethink this, that sort of thing. Because it doesn't make sense. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you're working 100 hours a week and you get hit by a bus next week, what's the point? I mean, that's just, it doesn't. Or let's say you fall. I mean, let's be more practical. You reach too far on an RV, which we've all done, or the hood of a car, and you fall off a ladder and you're paralyzed, or whatever. I mean, that's probably a more likely scenario for a lot of us. So, if you're a full-time detailer, same kind of deal. It's more self-reflection. I would encourage most guys to do sort of a calendar kind of deal. If you want to, let's say you want to lose weight, right? You're gonna look at what you've eaten over the last 3 days and this is what your trainer's gonna do. They're gonna want to know what you're eating. Look at your time. Look at where your time budget is going to figure out where you're really spending that time, and then you can make adjustments from there.
I like what you said of kind of setting calendar goals, because a lot of guys reach out to me that are again, they're making that transition from their full-time business to the detailing business. And I see them get trapped that their full-time gig is a little too good.
Yeah.
For them to cut the ties, but now their detailing business is ramping up and they're starting to make more in the days that they detail cars than they would at work, and now they're starting to have to take days off work, but they're still like scared. Oh man, what about this? What about that? I like that 40% that you talked about, but I also like setting, everything that you said is good. Setting, if you need 6 details, your lifestyle may have to change, but your lifestyle is going to have to change no matter what, because you're going from working from someone and just collecting a paycheck to you have to write your own paycheck. So, but I like that, hey, in 3 months, if I'm still making X amount of dollars on the days that I'm not at work and focusing on my detail business, I know that I can make it. Because what I tell guys is, hey, you're working 40 hours for someone else. What if you had 40 hours next week to dedicate to your own detail business? Do you not think that you could replace your income?
Yeah,
And they're like,
for sure.
well, I know I could. I'm like, well, then why are you still working there?
Yeah, I mean, and you
they're
have to
like, well,
come
I'm
up with all
scared.
the costs with health insurance and all that, getting actual
Yeah.
insurance and all that. But that's hopefully these guys have all that stuff in line anyway if they're detailing other than the health insurance. But really, that would be, in my mind, if you're looking at it, that's probably the only security net that exists for most people working full time.
And if you're, yeah, because, yeah, if a lot of people
Other
say,
than
well, my job is,
guaranteed income, obviously.
but here's what I like to think about. Okay, so if you're working in a big corporation, you're a cog in a wheel,
Right.
right? So the people running the business, maybe they know of you, maybe they don't, depending on how big of the corporation it is. But chances are you don't really know what some of the deep, dark decisions are being made for the company that is responsible for your paycheck, right?
Right.
So how secure is your job really? Whereas if you're working, and this is kind of my soapbox, so whereas if you're working for yourself and you don't have a paycheck at the end of the week, the only person you can blame is yourself that you didn't get off your butt and go get some work done.
Yeah.
So I look at it like it is more secure. Yeah, you're going to have some extra expenses, but it's more secure to work for yourself than someone else because you know the exact decisions that are getting made.
Absolutely.
That's myself.
And let's talk to that. I mean, basically, what you're describing is an entrepreneurial mindset, right? You're talking
Well,
about the self-employed, the draw of self-employment. And you know as well as I do that not every guy out there is cut out for that decision making. Like
Absolutely.
they're just not geared that way. And I would
Right.
encourage, again, we're talking about lifestyle design, we're talking about really self-examination. If you want to do detailing on the side and you're doing it sort of lying to yourself saying that eventually I'm going to go out and do this on my own, but in reality you like having that paycheck,
Right.
you like that what is perceived low risk. To your point, it's not really low risk because you're not the one making decisions, but
Right.
I think that if you want to do it on the side, I think you need to decide if you're going to do it on the side for an end goal. And if you're doing that, then do that deliberately. If you're just going to continue to do it on the side, don't pretend it's doing something different.
Right.
Does
And
that
that's
make
okay
sense?
if you want to do it. Yeah. And that's,
Yeah,
for
there's nothing
everyone
wrong
listening,
with
that's
that.
okay.
Just don't lie
Right.
to yourself.
Right. There's nothing wrong with doing it on the side. And there are, of course, exceptions to every rule. And I bring them up all the time. And when we saw him at Benedict Car Show, I even told it to him. There are like just insane jobs that afford you to have all the perks of a job, but also almost detail full time, and that's Claude, obviously,
Yeah.
who just has this unbelievable schedule that's like amazing. But he's perfect with it, and he knows, like to your point, he knows exactly how many cars he can do in a week before it's too many.
That's
and
right.
he even talked to that at the car show, and he said, "Hey, look, I'm really pushing my limit right now, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do, and blah 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 blah." But
Well, and
yeah,
he has a plan though too.
He
Today's
does have
his
a plan.
birthday. Happy birthday, Claudius.
I text him. Did you text him?
He's 57 years old today.
Wow,
Which is awesome. The guy can.
he's almost as old as you.
He can run circles around both of us. Nice jerk. But he has a plan too. The reason
Right.
he's sticking with his full-time gig is because he has an out. At some point he'll retire
that
from
calendar.
that. He'll draw
That
retirement, do detailing at whatever level he wants, and probably live pretty damn well.
Yeah.
On those with that money. So yeah,
Right.
it's definitely he's got a good situation.
Yeah, he does. And but I like that. Good point. He has his kind of calendar date of when he's, going to retire from the full-time gig.
Right.
But man, I don't know how that guy does it.
I know he's a machine. I mean, you and I have talked before about the whole planning aspect. I mean, I try
Right.
to do everything strategically. So with all of this stuff, what a lot of guys forget to do is they're they're maybe trying to mitigate risk professionally, and they're forgetting about mitigating risk in their personal lives. Either their own health. I mean, we've got some friends that ended up in the hospital recently, and because they're working too hard or whatever. I mean, we got all that kind of situation. Guys that are just abusing their body. You're talking about Larry Casilla with his knee, and but they're even not even that drastic. Just not having a life outside of your professional thing. No hobbies or no, you don't really. You're just miserable and tired all the time. That's just not good. So my encouragement is if you're gonna worry about risk and sort of making the best business life, well, don't neglect your personal life in order to do that.
And it's just crazy to think about how much more profitable your business can be if you're on point with, everything, not only working too much, but having that balance in your life, having hobbies outside of cars maybe, will really, you can go to that hobby and be recharged by it. Rennie Doyle comes to mind. He loves doing search and rescue. And I think he had a post that he posted a few days ago, maybe it was a week ago, whatever, where it was a picture of him like scaling down the side of a mountain or something like that. Yeah. And you could just tell that, man, that guy, there's no doubt, he loves cars. He loves everything about cars. But he knows the importance of having hobbies outside of cars that he can be recharged from. And be even more be more on fire for his detailing business because of the extracurricular activities that he does. And I think that's so important. Me personally, I've gotten to a point probably a few weeks ago, and I kind of caught on to it, and so I'm taking some steps to kind of eliminate it. But I got so sick and tired of looking at pictures of cars and 50-50 shots. I'm like, I literally have to look at something else. And I got up early one morning and just like flipped through, this is super lame, but Pinterest, my wife's account, whatever. I have an account.
Sure, it's your wife's account. Well, that's all right. We won't tell.
People keep following me on Pinterest, and I'm like, dang it. They know. But I literally just looked at pictures of like anything that had absolutely nothing to do with the car, because I'm like, I just need my brain to look at something other than a stupid hunk of metal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, if you look at, anytime you're out of balance, there's problems. I mean, there's a reason why we balance tires, right? Have you ever seen a tire, ever driven a car with a tire that's thrown a wheel weight? The thing bounces up and down, goes like crazy, and is all over the place, right? So there's a good analogy, visual representation of what your life can look like without even you realizing it. I mean, you look at somebody like our friend Rennie, right? He's been married for a long time. His wife is awesome. His life, if you want to emulate someone professionally, that's great. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he's a great guy to learn from, a great guy to emulate, because he's been very successful for that. But honestly, I value his personal life, or what I see about him being a friend of mine, seeing what he's done in those successes. He's got a daughter that's in the military. His other daughter is really active in her school, and he just has a great family, successful marriage, and all that stuff, because he's worked at that just as hard as he's worked at his professional life. And I feel like that I try to do the same thing. We all have our personal failings or whatever, but I've got 2 awesome kids. I've been married for 20 years. And that doesn't, and part of that is because my wife said, hey, this is what we need to take steps to fix this now, early on in our marriage.
Yeah. And
part of it just comes from working on a daily basis. I want to work as hard in my personal life as I do in my professional life.
And that's hard to do sometimes. I really struggle with that balance, because I tend to be so motivated business-wise that I have a really hard time with that balancing act, because my personality, or maybe it's just a guy thing, I tend to focus on one thing, and like I'll kill it at that one thing, and everything else sucks. Yep. So I'll kill it at business, and my relationship with my wife sucks.
Yep.
And then or I'll be killing it with the family life, and it's like, this happened a couple weeks ago, killing it with the family life. Everything was going great. I'm like, work is so slow right now. I need to get on the train. You know what I mean?
And that comes from, the problem with personal life stuff is that it's almost always deferred gratification.
Yeah.
If you get on and make 4 or 5 phone calls, you're going to book somebody, right? Like you're
Right.
detailing wise. Well, it doesn't necessarily work that quickly when you're talking about your personal life, but
it's a slow burn.
But it comes from, you need to be just as deliberate personally. And I don't know how many listeners have already dropped off by now, but
all of them.
Now we're down to 3, but be just as deliberate with your personal life in terms of scheduling time. If you're married, make sure you're doing those date nights and spend time with your kids. Take each one of your kids, if you got more than one, take them out for daughter, dad and son outings and all that stuff. It's being a guy that's been there and failed miserably and then sort of come back around. I feel like I have something to say about that, and it just requires a lot of work.
Yeah, that's more work. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but it's different. It's more fun. I mean, it's. I mean, life is work, right? Life here on Earth is not all fun and games, but you can actually work at having fun. I went and that day you saw me at Benedict Castle doing those car shows. I had an opportunity to go hang out with 300 different cars and all these major awesome vehicles. We got up at like 3:30 that morning or something like that. And so I'm running around all over the place. That was hard work, but it's also a lot of fun, and I love being around cars. So,
yeah, and I think that's what most guys would say is that, well, yeah, I'm working 100 hours a week, but I really like what I'm doing, and I am recharged by it. Kind of just real quick, touch on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they say if you find something you love, then you'll never work a day in your life, which is kind of BS, really. I mean, I don't care how much I like something. At some point, it's going to become work. But even if you're at a point right now where you're working that many hours, you love it, you're getting all your emotional rewards from it or whatever, and you're single, then you may get a bit of a reprieve. I think I would look at my health. My overall health and whether or not you have friendships and other things outside of that, just to look at that balance. If you're married, it's a very simple equation. Go ask your wife how she feels about your current schedule. I mean, that's a no-brainer because she will tell you. If you're not married or if you're not in a relationship like that, go ask your friends, if you have any left. Or whatever, what I mean? So ask the people around you how that's working out. So I think other self-reflection is one thing, but getting sort of a balance check from other people in your life will give you a good sense of whether or not you're on the right track.
And, also listen, our bodies are very alertive. Gosh, this is getting bad. But our bodies will alert us. How about that?
Yeah.
When something's wrong. So, and that could be physically, spiritually, emotionally. Our bodies do let us know if we are allowing or if we are hearing those warning signs. And so, if there's, something's been nagging at you for years, take a day off of work and fix it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if you're emotionally, if you're dealing with depression or whatever, guys, take time off work and work at, getting yourself better and then worry about the cars. If your marriage sucks, work on that. There's plenty enough cars.
Yeah.
But work on the aspects of your life that your body's telling you or other people are telling you.
And there's one other thing I'd say about this whole concept is I feel like that a lot of these guys don't give themselves permission to not book a car.
Right.
Like, and that's just, I don't understand that. Like that philosophy for me, I don't know if it's fear-based, like if I turn down this one car, then every car in the history of the world will not need to be cleaned anymore or what. But like I see a lot of this going on right now in my little circle, and it's like, yeah, well, we're booked out till June and everybody's pissed off and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, great. I mean, enjoy don't book any more cars.
Right. I wonder if I could find Ivan real quick posted this really cool thing. I'm going to have to email him to find it or something, but it had like 2 columns and or maybe it was a dialogue or something like that, but it talked about, what the, oh gosh, the ego-driven detailer says, and then what the professional detailer
Right.
says. And it's like, I don't know. I would
Yeah,
like to
find that
find
and
it to
post that
link
up because
it.
I think that thing's really good.
Yeah. Did you see that?
Yeah, he actually posted
Okay.
something the other day that had those, and I think we talked about this. Posted with all the crosses at Arlington National Cemetery. Basically, it's a bunch of tombstones, and it said
Right.
something about which was good. I liked his point. He wasn't trying to make the point that I sort of turned it into.
Right.
But he had, what's your legacy? And he was talking more about professional legacy. And I had posted on there that if at the end of my life I'm worried about my professional legacy and my business contacts, then I've seriously screwed up my life.
Right.
So because
It's
because
true.
that means that I've missed a component of my life.
Right.
So
Trying to find it. All right. Cool. So we're over an hour, so I think people
yeah,
are
I think we
probably tired
probably
of
beat
hearing
that to
our.
death. But again, my last point, or reiterating, is just if
Yeah.
you're doing this, just take a look at what your daily and weekly life looks like. Take a look at your health. Your sleep habits, your fitness. Whether or not you're
Yeah.
healthy. Look at your relationships and put all that stuff in balance and do your best to be in balance.
Man, that's one thing that for me myself, I'm a little bit heavier than I would like to be, and I could tell every day in and day out what a drag it is. And not to kind of beat on other guys, but I see some bigger dudes, and I'm like, dude, I know how much I'm struggling. Like, it's got to be hard, man.
I
Like,
would think, yeah. This is a
you
hard
know,
job. So
and I'm not trying to put anyone down at all. I'm just saying I'm a little bit heavier than I would like to be, and I'm having a tough time.
yeah.
And detailing is a lot of work. So cool. All right, if people probably shouldn't have said that, but whatever. If people want to, and I'm really not trying to blast anyone at all. I'm just speaking to myself. Um, if people want to connect with you, Kevin Davis, how can they find it?
Yeah, just detailershelper.com, or you can find me on Facebook. Just search for Detailers Helper, and there's lots of cool things going on there. We're doing some more products coming out in the next few weeks, and got some new logo stuff going, new branding stuff, and I'm just doing a lot of different things. So
And when do we get to hear about how you spent your $100,000?
that's part of the branding process. Freaking branding and pictures and video and all that stuff is expensive. So I haven't quite spent the
Yeah,
100
no
grand
kidding.
yet. I'm trying to make sure I can pay bills and pay my mortgages and all that stuff too. So
Right on. All right. And this, for everyone listening, we also did a video recording of this too. So if you want to
you
see
can
what a
look at a
beautiful
hat with two
face
blue eyes and a mic
and Kevin's awesome office.
with my
Yeah, there's
cool
not
with
much
my
on my end,
cool
huh?
dachshund puppy calendar in the
Yeah, I
background. I hope
love
you
that.
notice that.
That's cute. Can you pan over to your other camera?
No, we're not going to show that. All my big mess. Yeah, there's a
Uh,
reason why we're in this frame, right? That's this is the clean part.
and there's a reason why I stick a mic in front of my face.
That's good for all of us.
All right, Kevin, thanks for coming on the show
All
again.
right, cool. Thanks. See you next time.